Okay, so I wanted to talk about why I steer towards using Koala more on the desktop versus using it on the iPhone and the iPad, which I still use it on those, but lately I've been using it more on desktop. And here's why. On desktop, I have access to so much more when it comes to instruments and the quality of the instruments. For instance, Omnisphere, Trillion, Keyscape, Arturia V Collection, Spitfire Audio pianos. All of those instruments are just a higher quality instruments that I like personally using. Also, a few other things like glitch machines and uh, and then even some of my Ableton Max for Live plugins can all be used to record into Koala. See, iOS does not offer, has a unique way, I should say. I shouldn't say it doesn't offer, but of setting input and output. And it can be quite cumbersome at times dealing with it. So on desktop, I don't have that limitation. So it's nice to be able to just record straight in whatever I hear or want. And then recently I told you guys about Loopback, and Loopback allows me to route the sounds however I feel are deemed necessary. In fact, I'm using one of the audio hijack to record even my vocals as we're recording this video. So I have access to my microphone that I'm recording right now. I have access to anything on the internet that I want to sample in, plus all of the instruments that exist on my desktop. So for me, this is better when I want to finish the mix or finish the parts. I can jump into Ableton, which is already open, and then start laying the tracks down. So it's really quick. I don't have to do nearly as much jumping around as it might seem. The fact that you can, export to Ableton, right here, Ableton Live Set or a drum rack. If I chop something up, I could just send the samples directly into Ableton and then start working. I mean, it's just ridiculous how unlimited it is. Now, I do enjoy chopping the samples sometimes on my phone. And I'll do that sometimes. I'll chop them if I'm just laying in the bed, and then I'll send it over, the project over to desktop, and then I can get in here and start, working on it a little bit further. Sometimes I don't use the desktop version. It just depends on where I'm at, what I'm doing, how I feel at that moment. The iPad version obviously is good too, either one, but there's instruments that don't work on the phone on iOS that will work on the iPad. There's instruments that work on desktop that don't work on any of the iOS stuff. So it just depends on where you're going and what you're doing. So for instance, this is an example that I'm working on something. I'm using, here, I'll show you. I'm using Valhalla's Supermassive with this ambient synth and recording in sort of like a pad drone thing, which kind of sits in the back. I have it sitting pretty low. And then I chopped up a drum break. Got all that plugged in. And while that's running, I can start playing with other instruments, right? So that's where I started messing with this acoustic guitar. And then I wanted to come in and see what chords I wanted. So I used Scalar, which is right here. Have it connected. Okay, so then I have that going. So if I want to just record some guitar parts, so while it's playing, I can arm a track. right? So there's my voice. Obviously, I recorded it there, and I wouldn't be recording in with that, but it's recording in the guitar. So check this out. Now, all I gotta do is plug these in. So I know these. I'm gonna go ahead and crop this one. This one, I'll extend it just a little bit and then crop the edge there too. Okay. So now I have these two parts, which is two different things, just 3 chords basically. Go into here. And I know I'm going to make this one 4 and this one 4. If I need to stretch it, so this is an extra chord on the end that I don't need. Okay, so I'm going to crop this off and then I'm going to stretch it. Now it says it's only 2 bars. So in order to fix this the way I want it, I'm going to need to take the stretch off for a second. And then we're going to fix this because I want this to have this extra chord on the end, right? So I'm just going to add this to the end. So it's not stretching for the bars that I want it to be. So I just make it work. Get rid of that one. I'm going to stretch it. Now it says it's only 2 bars. So that's fine. So then I'm going to do this like this. Pop that out, stretch it for 2 bars. So I'm playing in this. This is what I started with. And then I had to tweak a few things, which is fine. So we'll get rid of that one. I don't really need it. And then now we have what you see here. And so these are my chords. And now I can play melodies over that or add whatever I want. So depending on which way I want to go, if I want to add more to the drums, so I might play the ghost in. So let's do that right now. Okay, so now we'll turn that off. Adjust any notes that need to be adjusted. Just go in. And it's so much easier for me, in my opinion at least, to go in and see these notes here. And I'm not tinkering around too much. I can just go in and find which bars or notes that I want to adjust, if there's any, right? Like this one I'll put right there. Maybe I'll put it here just to give it a little variation. It's easy to go in here and just drop a few bars down like that. I need to adjust the velocity. I could even play this in, to be honest. I don't really think you have to sit here and manually do this if you don't want to. So that's a good thing too. Just play it in. I actually like this one a little off. This one I wouldn't mind here. So I'll watch it and see it go through. There you go. To do the hi-hats, I'm just using the velocity turned on right here, up and down to get the variation. Right? So I use no repeat and I try to feel it as if I was drumming it by hand. And then I have a little swing on here. You can see right there. So this is a simple beat, not really putting a lot of energy in it. I'm just showing it to you. If I want another guitar, like I want something here, maybe that's electric, like Stratocaster, maybe. Now I have my Strat. Maybe I want this one to be a lead. So I might find or the same. I don't know what I need. That in. Now I know the key by looking at scalar that we're in G Dorian. It's all the white keys except for the B. Except for B, we're using B flat. So that's pretty easy to remember if I want to solo out, or I can use horns or whatever I'm going to use. If I can Koala. So you see what I'm saying? So Koala's easy to edit in. Koala doesn't require a lot of thought, in my opinion. I mean, sure, you need to be able to cut the sample, but there's so much play and wiggle room in here to just have fun. I will say make yourself copies of each piece as you work on parts so that you don't mess up and then can't go back, because you can't undo things of that nature. You can undo the MIDI part. You can't undo the audio stuff you delete. So just make sure you keep it till you feel content with it. And yeah, then if you want to, now I'll be honest, I don't mix on here. I'm not a fan of the mixer. Not because the mixer is bad. Let me rephrase that. I'm not a fan of the some of the plug-in parts in here. And it might be okay, but I'm just not a fan of it. Now, so that's why I typically just use Koala as a starting tool to get me going. And I might lay a foundation of a track in here. But then when I'm ready to get up out of here and really finish it, I just send everything over to Ableton and finish in Ableton. Even sometimes like with the solos, I might record them in here. Sometimes I don't. It just depends, because it's not that it's hard to do for me, but it's just easier in the DAW. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, excuse me, the fact that the DAW has more MIDI editing. So Koala's MIDI editing is really simple. It's not complex. But now, if you are an artist or a musician who is just sampling, then I think Koala is perfect for that. If you're just sampling, chopping up parts of samples, you don't need any instruments because you're borrowing from, or however you want to term that, you're sampling, let's just leave it at that, from other artists that have already played something. You're just using their samples and chopping it up and playing those samples back. Then you have no really worry or need for all this other stuff. But just wanted to show you my method when I'm on desktop with Koala and why I typically love doing it this way. Or if I'm on the iPhone or iPad, I'm doing really basic, simple stuff just to get a beat started or a song started, and then jumping into Ableton to really finish the work. So anyway, just thought it'd be fun to take a look at this to show you the process, how I do it. Yeah, it works good. So yeah, there you go. And you got to remember that you're in here because I'm always pressing Ableton stop. This is right here. But yeah, so um, hopefully that makes sense and gives you an idea of how you can do this. If you're going to really finish your tracks in here, I highly suggest get used to using the mixer then and these effects, because that's where you're going to be living, right? If you're just in here. But for me, I'm kind of in between using multiple things to try to get the sound. I want the most clarity. I want the best sound quality that I can get from whatever I'm using, because I want my music to sound like that. So anyway, that's it. All is good, and have a great day.